Joy Behar from The View has a cure for racism. Following up on her ridiculous comments on Monday, she added even more to it on Tuesday's show. Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and 8 other Democrats piled out of a clown car last night to debate, and we'll go over some of the low points. Also, the president of U.S. Soccer, addressing the so-called wage disparity with the women's national team, put out some pretty interesting information. All that and more. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
God bless the United States of America.
All right, friends, welcome to the show. Before we jump in, I just want to tell you about my friends over at Bottle Breacher. They make some great stuff. I have some myself, and I invite you to check it out. It is Made in America products, veteran-owned company, and they have great gifts, promotional items, you name it. Just go to bottlebreacher.com, use coupon code Bobby13-A1 for 20% off your next purchase. That's bottlebreacher.com, coupon code Bobby13-A1. All right, friends. I guess in preparing for today's show, I just decided to kill all brain cells because I knew I'd be covering the debate, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But I wanted to look into this weirdness that Joy Behar over at The View was saying, and it's just absolutely nuts. All right, she decided to jump in on this whole controversy from the weekend with President Trump and Elijah Cummings and Baltimore in general. You know, Trump blasted Baltimore, blasted Cummings because the place is rat infested, it's crime ridden, it leads the stats in the country in the worst categories. And of course, because Trump called that out, they called him a racist. Well, Trump fired back and called Nancy Pelosi, one of Cummings' defenders, and Cummings racist. All right. So that's the setup. So Joy Behar decides to jump in this thing. And so on yesterday's show, she first recapped what she said on Monday. Check this out.
Yesterday I said to you that I didn't think black people could be racist. And I got slammed, by Fox and whatever and other places because they think that I'm wrong on that.
So, of course, that was Monday. She says that black people can't even be racist. It's impossible. So she tried to distinguish between racism and bigotry, and here's what she said.
When I talk about racism, I talk about a system of racism in this country that affects housing, that affects politics, that affects education. It's a system of racism. And if you are a minority in this country, you are more a victim of racism. So it's hard to be a racist when you are a victim of racism. Yeah.
And this is where she goes into this new definition of racism. She just jumps right into this left-wing stuff. And let's just set the record straight, okay? Bigotry and racism, they go hand in hand. In fact, racism is actually a subset of bigotry. If you're bigoted, you hate or dislike or promote violence, or you're against someone because of any number of factors: religion, gender, sexual orientation, or race. If it happens to be race, if you're bigoted against someone because of race, if you feel that they are inferior because of race, guess what? That's racism. They go hand in hand. But the left, just like they're trying to do with gender and biological differences, they try and make up their own definitions. And Behar was quoting from the left-wing playbook, and I dug up a definition. I dug up an article from the Huffington Post from a couple years ago that really spells it out. This author, she calls herself a coach and trainer of diversity champions. And in her article on the Huffington Post, here's what she writes. She says, racism, using my favorite definition from Solid Ground, is the systematic distribution of resources, power, and opportunity in our society to the benefit of people who are white and the exclusion of people of color. This distribution can be intentional or unintentional, and these systems are largely unconscious and invisible to white people, but they are real and they have meaningful impacts on people's lives. Okay, so there's so much I want to say on this definition, but let's just point out some facts, okay? So she's basically saying that it's impossible for blacks to be racist. The only ones that can be racist are white people, all right? And so she has the cure. She has the cure to that, and here's what she says.
I don't understand the difference between racism and bigotry, that black people can be bigoted like anybody else. Yeah. But when you're talking about racism in this country, until black people are running everything,
we can't close.
So that's her idea of a cure, is let black people run everything. Well, if they did, wouldn't they then be the racists since they had the power? It makes no sense. And her statement is just so insulting and so wrong. The past 4 mayors of Baltimore have been black, and 2 of those 4 have resigned in disgrace. Okay, the 10 most poorest cities in the United States, Baltimore's actually 11th, haven't had a Republican mayor in 30 years. Baltimore hasn't had one in 52 years. So it's 11th in the poorest city. It's number 1 on the list of top 10 worst, most dangerous cities in America. Baltimore is number 1. And when they talk about, racism only from whites, they also imply, conservatives and Republicans. And yet these cities have been run by Democrats for decades, and they keep getting worse and worse and worse. And yet the people in those districts keep reelecting the Democrats, and nothing ever changes. Nothing changes. So now I want to talk to you with that weirdness in your head. I want to talk to you about the debate last night, because yes, I watched it, and it's just mind-numbing, the things that they will say. And it really says a lot about their base. The base of the Democrat Party right now is so far left. And, there's a few voices on the stage that are trying to bring it to the center, and they just get drowned out. And it was amazing listening to it. There was some highlights. Everybody seemed to be amped up from the first debate. They were louder, they were tougher, they were stronger. They were just a lot more forceful for their airtime. I think one of the ones who did the worst was Beto. He was like non-existent. Even some of these reps that you hardly heard of, where you said who, when we had the first debate, like John Delaney or Tim Ryan, they did much better than Beto. Beto he was non-existent. But the whole, Medicare for all, and paying college tuitions and for everybody, and no student loan debt and everything like that, just on and on and on, the same old stuff. But I wanted to just highlight a few things. And here is one from Bernie Sanders.
If you want stability in the healthcare system, if you want a system which gives you freedom of choice with regard to doctor or hospital, which is a system which will not bankrupt you, the answer is to get rid of the profiteering of the drug companies and the insurance companies, move to Medicare for all.
So see, that's what I'm talking about. It's just crazy stuff like this. We've already went through this with Obamacare. If you like your doctor, you can keep it. If you like your plan, you can keep it. If you like your hospital, you can keep it. That's what Bernie Sanders is saying now. We saw that it wasn't true with Obamacare, and he thinks that it's going to actually come true under his plan. And then he talks about more streamlined and more reliable. It's not going to bankrupt the country. The country will be broke when you start charging for all of this, and there won't be the doctors in the hospitals to go to, because as we've seen over and over again, as the facts come out, if the hospitals and doctors are only getting paid the Medicare rate for everybody, they will go out of business, and your choices will just evaporate like that. That is the truth of the matter. And Bernie Sanders tries to play this off as a cost savings efficiency program. You talk about red tape in, private health insurance. Everybody knows when you deal with the government, it absolutely gets worse, and they want to take on full health care for everybody, mandatory through the government plans, and it's supposed to be more efficient. It's just absolutely nuts. But here's one that I'm not sure why, but it really struck me. It really stood out of all, they talked about immigration and economy and everything like that. But Elizabeth Warren was asked about nuclear weapons, and here's what she said.
Why should the U.S. tie its own hands with that policy?
Because it makes the world safer. The United States is not going to use nuclear weapons preemptively, and we need to say so to the entire world. It reduces the likelihood that someone miscalculates, someone misunderstands.
So what kind of policy is that? What is she talking about? It's so frustrating. I wish I could just go out there and debate these people, because they throw out misleading items and they try and tug at some emotions where it has no base on fact. She's talking about trust. There are nations out there that rely on us for their very survival. And she's talking about we need to have countries trust us. Trust doesn't matter, folks. They turn to the United States because it is the most powerful country in the world. Countries know where we stand. I mean, we don't have to go repairing trust around the world. It's just a nonsensical argument. And then this whole idea that countries will be worried that we might use nukes first and we have to have an actual policy that limits our options. One, no president's going to do that. And if they do, it's going to end up being some left-winger like this that we don't want. We should never, ever limit our options. And what countries are worried? You know, you think Great Britain is worried that we might drop nukes on them first before they can do something? Or France might be worried that we'll do the same thing? Or Canada might be worried that we're going to launch some nukes? No. You know who's worried? Our enemies. Our enemies are the ones who are worried, and good reason. And so she wants to limit our options with the people and the countries that matter most, and that's our enemies. You know, we need them wondering, oh my gosh, if we take this too far, maybe we'll just be nuked out of existence. Let them think that. I mean, we don't have to cater to them, and that's exactly what her policy does, and it's absolutely outrageous. It makes no sense to me. So finally, folks, I want to talk to you about U.S. soccer. The president put out a fact sheet the other day, and it's very interesting because, you know, in between this anthem kneeling of the women's national team, Megan Rapinoe, and they have a lawsuit wanting equal pay, you know, and it flies in the face, everyone knows it flies in the face of basic economics. If women's soccer were the most popular, most watched sport in the U.S., guess what? They'd get paid the most, but it's not. It's just like the WNBA. They complain about wages. You know, they make a fraction of what NBA players make, but the revenue they bring in is a small percentage of the NBA, and that's why they get paid less. So they've been complaining to U.S. Soccer, and U.S. Soccer has come out with this fact sheet that is just awesome. It lays out what the women actually get paid. And one of the key things to point out is that the president of U.S. Soccer noted that the men's and women's national teams negotiate their contracts separately. It's not like U.S. Soccer comes out and says, men, we're going to just give you this, and women, we're going to give you a whole lot less. Each one negotiates separately. And here are some of the highlights of what goes on in the women's contract. Okay, there's a difference in pay structure. They negotiate the contracts differently. And so here is what happens for the women. Guaranteed salary for women under their CBA. The women have chosen to have a guaranteed salary. U.S. Soccer therefore pays each WNT contracted player a base salary of $100,000 per year. In contrast, the men's national team players have no guaranteed salary and are only paid for training camps they attend and the games they play, plus bonuses. In addition, U.S. Soccer also pays WNT contracted players $67,000 to $72,000 salary for playing in the National Women's Soccer League. So they're making between $167,000 and $172,000 a year. Plus, they have health care, they have child care, they have maternity leave, they have all sorts of other benefits that the men do not have. In addition, they look through some of the revenue, and in only 2 years over the last 10 did women's soccer break even. They took a loss in 8 out of the last 10 years. So the fact sheet is just absolutely amazing. And it shows that a lot of this is all talk. And if people would just look at economics, they would figure it out. Folks, that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe. And when you do, please hit that bell. I'm Bobby Eberly. This is a 13-minute news hour. Okay, friends, just a little reminder before you go, and no, this does not count against my 13 minutes. Please hit the subscribe button below and tell your friends. And if you happen to miss our last show, you can check it out right here. And also for great conservative news and commentary, please check out GOPUSA.com. All right, folks, we'll see you on the next show. Have a great day.